So today I'm going to be trying something new. I've already covered these three stocks and I think they all have significant opportunity. Today I'm going to find out which one is best by comparing the size of opportunity, the market cap, the timeline, risks and catalysts. Whether you're invested in any of these stocks or are thinking about investing, then this video is a must watch.
Fight!
So first of all, let's take a look at the opportunity for each of these stocks. So we've got Aquestive Therapeutics at the top here with a range from 1 billion to 2 billion. This comes from their presentation, which says they're expecting to make 1 billion from Anafilm, 100 million plus from Libervant, and 400 million plus from their topical gel. This would equate to around $1.5 million, and I've just put 1 to 2 here because they could obviously sell worse than that, or indeed, I think they could probably sell better than that. With Heron Therapeutics, it was a bit more difficult because they've not said how much they expect to make from Zenrelef. They did say that there's a 2.39 billion TAM, but there are quite a few competitors in this market already. They did, however, say that they were expecting to make 270 million from APONVIE. So I've given Zenrelef an estimated value of 1 billion and the APONVIE the 270 million, and I've just left that flat. With Ardelyx, we have a range from 2 billion to 3 billion, and this relies heavily on the HR 5074 getting passed and making sure that they don't go into the CMS bundle. I think even if they do go into the bundle, they still got an opportunity here of around $2 billion. And if they're not in the bundle, I think they've got an opportunity of at least $3 billion in sales. But of course, this needs to be taken into consideration with all the other facts about the companies, which leads me on now to the market cap. So Aquestive Therapeutics is currently sat at 400 million, Heron Therapeutics at 300 million, and Ardelyx at 1.5 billion. Of course, the lower market cap of the company means that they're going to have a greater opportunity to multiply in the future. This brings me to my next document. And these values are simply the opportunity divided by the market cap. We can see here that Aquestive Therapeutics has a weighting of 2.5 to 5, Heron Therapeutics has a weighting of 4.2, and Ardelyx has a weighting of 1.3 to 2. So now we can see that Ardelyx is actually the lagger in this comparison, and Aquestive Therapeutics and Heron Therapeutics are leading the way. Still though, this isn't the full picture, and the next important thing I want to talk about is timeline. Now, of course, there's many different timelines that we could create here, but the one that I've chosen is a year into sales. And the reason I've done that is because after a year of sales, you can generally see where that drug is going to go in the future. And what we can see is that Aquestive Therapeutics is still quite a long way off from that. They're 2.5 years away. Heron Therapeutics is about 1.25 years away. And I'm putting this for Heron Therapeutics, even though they have actually released their drug already, they are making some significant changes. And I think it's these changes is when we're going to see the turnaround in the drug. And then Ardelyx is already half a year into selling exposure, so they've just got another half year left. So we can see that Ardelyx is much closer to having a full view of where those drugs are going to be going. So that brings me to the final sheet. And this is taking the weighting that we saw earlier and then dividing that by the timeline. And we can see the range that Aquestive Therapeutics has is 1 to 2, Heron Therapeutics is 3.36, and Ardelyx is 2.6 to 4. So in this graph, Heron Therapeutics and Ardelyx are the winners. So as well as the quantitative information, I think we should also take into account some of the qualitative information. So looking at the risks, we can see that I put Aquestive Therapeutics risk level as minimal. The only thing I could think of is possibly that the FDA approval could get delayed, which would increase the timeline a little bit. This is only because they delayed the NEFI and therefore it could be a possibility, but I don't think the risk is too high. They are going to need a cash raise at some point and that will almost definitely affect the stock price. They do have enough money to survive until launch, but they're going to need a lot more money for the actual launch. And there is a minimal risk that Anafilm will be a slow uptake because perhaps people already have the EpiPen or they already have the Neffy and therefore they'll just buy that when those run out. I do think, however, that because of the portability improvements that this probably won't be an issue. For Heron Therapeutics, I think it's got the highest risk here because all of the drugs that they have are in very competitive markets. Their older drugs, which are currently selling quite well, are not the leading drugs in their market, so this is a fragile position to be. And the Zenrelef and APONVIE have been out a while, but sales have been slow to pick up. Thankfully, they've been making moves to improve this, and hopefully within the next 2 quarters, we should see a turnaround there. Ardelyx seems to have very low risks at the moment. Both drugs have been approved and are selling really well. The only real risk that faces this company at the moment is that they get included into the CMS bundle, which could hit Axphozia sales. However, I do still think they'll have significant opportunity even if this happens. So looking at Heron Therapeutics, we have the PDUFA date for the vial access needle, which should reduce the amount of time required to administer the drug in the operating room. This could lead to a significant uptake in the amount of people using the drug. But more importantly than that, I'm looking forward to the Q3 earnings report, because this is when we might find out if the improvements that they have been making to the sales team are actually going to have an effect on the sales. And finally, it's a couple of years away still, but if they can get the pre-filled syringe approved, then it's going to reduce the amount of time to administer this drug to just a few seconds. For Ardelyx, we have the upcoming HR 5074 bill, and this is going to be really significant for the company. These are just estimated dates of when this might come through, but if this comes through and passes, I think we could see a potential doubling of the stock price here. I really do think this is that significant. And then on top of that, the Q3 earnings report, I also think this is another important catalyst. If they can show that they can keep up the incredible sales that they've been having recently, then they can also show that they have a massive potential even if they don't get the HR 5274 bill passed. Okay, so let's do a summary about the stock and think about which stock might be best to invest in. So from the final graph here, the multi-bag potential over the timeline, we can see that Heron Therapeutics and Ardelyx are possibly the best to invest in. What I would say though is Heron Therapeutics is a much riskier look than Ardelyx. Heron Therapeutics is really depending on those sales turning around, and that's by no means guaranteed. But the management have changed since the initial release of these drugs, and I really would recommend that you see their Investors Day presentation if you haven't already. The management do seem incredibly on the ball and know exactly where to take the company. That said though, you can't guarantee that the sales are going to happen until they actually happen. But if they do, then there's a significant multi-bag opportunity here. And even with this graph, I definitely wouldn't rule out Aquestive Therapeutics. I think this is a great company with next to no risk. They've got a product which is just a new delivery mechanism, so the drug is already on the market, so there shouldn't be any worries about FDA approving this product, even if it does get a slight delay. The only thing that drops it down on this graph is the timeline, and it could be that the multi-bag opportunity for this company goes early because there is so much confidence that this drug should sell well. It does have a clear USP moving forward. And on top of that, we have the Investors Day catalyst and the earnings report catalyst coming up, which could see a significant increase in the stock price for this company. So really, I think all three of these companies could be a good play depending on your strategy. I would take Heron Therapeutics if you're okay with a higher risk to get high gains over a shorter time period. I would take Ardelyx if you're after some low risk, high return gains. And I would take Aquestive Therapeutics if you're looking for low risk, high gains over the long term. And of course, don't invest in these companies off of this video itself. Go and do your own research. Your money is at risk. Okay guys, I hope that helped you out. If you haven't done already, I really would recommend going to see these previous videos on these companies that go into them in a lot more depth. Also, please like and subscribe the video. It's free.